What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitching Ninja's Filthiest Pitches of the Day. Remember, before we get to those pitches, hit that subscribe button. Be a part of the biggest and best daily baseball show on YouTube. And now, without further ado, here are my filthiest pitches of the day. I'm going to start with Justin Steele, who had 4 Ks in 7 innings, giving up only 1 run. He had these wicked sliders and his elevated cutting fastball. Here's an overlay of his fastball and slider, and you can see why he really only needs those 2 pitches to shut teams down. He relies on them heavily and has had 14 consecutive starts giving up 2 earned runs or fewer. And since 1912, he is tied with Jake Arrieta for the longest such streak. And I hope some of you remember how absolutely filthy prime Jake Arrieta was. But that's how good Justin Steele has been. Steele's ERA this season is 1.45. He faced off against Edward Cabrera, who has absolutely amazing stuff. Cabrera had 8 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 3 runs, and his stuff was just outstanding. Look at these hammer breaking balls, and then these ridiculous high-velocity changeups. He was throwing changeups of 93, 94, and even 95 miles an hour. He throws his changeup even more than he throws his fastball, and it's no wonder that changeup has a 39% whiff rate. Chris Bassett had 5 Ks in 7 scoreless innings, bringing his ERA now down to 4.28 after that horrendous start. He relied on these slow breaking balls, his fastball, including his two-seamer, and this elevated cutter. Rich Hill, a.k.a. Dick Mountain, had 6 Ks in 5 1/3 innings. He did give up 4 runs, but Dick Mountain dropped down and gave this 69 and had these curveballs and fastballs. Hunter Green had his 100-mile-an-hour fastball and wicked sliders and even worked in a changeup, which is really rare for him. He had 7 Ks in 5 2/3 innings. He did give up 5 runs, but that was after 4 really solid innings. I think adding that changeup is going to be really important for Green, and he just has to get comfortable with it. I think I suggested last year that he add either a changeup or a splitter, because otherwise, as a 2-pitch pitcher, hitters can spit on that slider and sit on that fastball. He faced Lance Lynn, who had 8 Ks in 6 2/3 innings, giving up 4 runs. Lynn did have this fastball and typical Lynn outrageous K strut, where he grabs his nuts, turns around, and says, "Bye, bitch." I originally thought he said "bite me," but it does look more like "bye, bitch." I know some people hate these type of K struts, especially when a guy's not having a great season. My guess is it's Lance's way of just firing the team up and himself up. Dane Dunning had 3 Ks in 5 scoreless innings, giving up 2 hits. He had this filthy changeup. Tyler Anderson had 6 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 2 earned runs, and had these sick changeups. Max Fried had 7 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 5 runs, but he had this absolutely gorgeous curveball that might have been the prettiest pitch of the night, and also dominated with his changeups. He faced Dean Kramer, who went 6 innings with 3 Ks, and relied on his fastball, breaking ball, and changeup. Clayton Kershaw had 7 Ks in 4 2/3 innings. He did give up 4 runs and had 5 walks, which is very un-Kershaw-like. While his command was definitely off, he did have this filthy back foot slider and these Cooperstown curveballs. Here's an overlay of his fastball and slider, and you can see why that is one of the more dominant mixes in baseball. And then I did an extended overlay of Kershaw's mechanics and fastball and slider, and you can see how he does almost everything identical on every pitch. Dude is a perfectionist. Darvish had 6 Ks in 6 2/3 innings, giving up only 1 earned run on 4 hits. He had this painted sinker and this other two-seamer, and his two-seamers broke up to 21 inches this game. Just filthy movement. He also had this nasty splitter and these curveballs, one barrel-locking curveball, and then this slow 71-mile-an-hour curveball. Darvish's fastball is much faster than Kershaw's, but his curveball is even slower than Clayton's. Darvish is such a pitching artist. Here's you describing how he throws his slow curveball as opposed to his regular curveball.
Same as curveball.
How do you change it then? How do you slow it up? How do you make it go?
So curve
So the difference between the regular curveball and ephus curveball would be that regular curveball, you're trying to release it sort of in front versus the ephus you have the image of releasing it on the back side.
From here.
Yeah.
To up. That way.
Luis Castillo had 5 Ks in 7 innings, giving up 4 runs. He had this elevated fastball and slider. And he faced off against Christian Javier, who had 8 Ks in 7 innings thanks to his elevated fastballs and slider. Josiah Gray had these sliders on his way to 6 strikeouts in 5 innings, giving up 3 runs. And he faced Merrill Kelly, who was outstanding with 10 strikeouts in 7 innings, giving up only 4 hits and 1 run. Just had a great pitch mix of changeups, sliders, cutters, sinkers, and 4-seam fastballs, always keeping hitters off balance. His stuff doesn't necessarily blow you away, but that mix is filthy. Bailey Ober had 6 Ks in 7 innings, give up only 2 hits. My dude is 6'9" and looks terrifying standing on that mound. And that curveball's also pretty terrifying. He also had these elevated fastballs and sliders. Ober's ERA this season is .98. Ober battled Peyton Battenfield, who had 7 Ks in 7 innings, giving up 2 runs, and relied mostly on these cutters, but did throw in a couple of changeups too. Corbin Burns had these filthy sliders and changeups, and this backdoor cutter that, if you didn't think was a strike, you're not alone. He had 5 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 5 runs, with only 2 of them being earned. And he faced Sean Manaea, who had 6 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 3 earned runs, and had this nasty slider and changeup. Matthew Boyd had 6 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 3 runs, had this fastball, slider, and changeup. He faced Jordan Montgomery, who had 6 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 2 runs. He painted a little bit outside the lines here, but did have these sinkers, getting a sword on this one, and this dirty curveball. Kodai Senga had 4 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 2 hits and no runs. His fastball was up to 99 miles an hour. And while Senga throws a ghost fork, it was the Ripper who was creating some ghosts, getting this kill after Senga's 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Keeping with that ghost theme, Kodai Senga's ghost fork was filthy. He has a 53.5% whiff rate on the ghost fork this year, and that pitch seems like it's always in hitters' minds. And when he throws it, there's almost nothing you can do. Here's an overlay of Senga's 98-mile-an-hour fastball with that ghost fork, and you can see why they call it a ghost fork. It's because it disappears. He faced Antonio Senzatella, who had these sliders, ended up with 3 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 1 run. Zach Wheeler had 5 Ks in 5 1/3 innings, giving up 4 runs, had this vicious sweeper and sinker and fastball, and also got a K on a pitch timer violation. Look at that filth. He battled yesterday's Major League filthiest starting pitcher yesterday, Chris Sale. Sale gave up 3 runs in 6 innings, but that doesn't come close to telling the story of his dominance. Again, vintage Chris Sale comes out. He got this K with 99, 99, and 98 mile-an-hour heat, and really relied on his elevated fastball and threw in a few sinkers too. He had some absolutely sick back foot sliders, including this slider that ends up behind a hitter. Just dominant stuff when angry Chris Sale comes out. But my filthiest starting pitcher of the day yesterday was in the college ranks. It was Paul Skenes. Paul Skenes came into this game 6th in ERA in D1, 1st in Ks with 124 in 65 innings. The next highest has 97 Ks. He's averaging 17.08 Ks per 9. And I love this chart of where Paul Skenes stands among all other college pitchers if you're looking at strikeouts and innings pitched. Yep, he's that outlier way up there. And that gap just got bigger. Skenes had 15 Ks last night. He had his mix of upper 90s fastballs touching 100, as well as these wicked sliders and unhittable changeups. This man is going to dominate in the major leagues soon. Now on to my filthiest relievers. Jason Adam had this sweeper, and his sweeper was breaking up to 23 inches. Andrew Vasquez had this 2-time zone slider. David Bednar had this overpowering heat. Brian Abreu had these 6 sliders. Andrew Chafin had these dirty sliders. Stephen Okert had this filth. Eric Swanson had this wicked splitter. Garrett Clevenger had this back foot slider, literally. Ian Hamilton had this Slambio. Joe Kelly was messing with the pitch clock and had these fastballs and knuckle curves. Camilo Doval had these 6 sliders. Yohan Duran had these hammer curveballs and got the sword. I mean, a 90-mile-an-hour curveball like that, that's really not very fair. Josh Hader had these filthy sliders. Kenley Jansen had 3 Ks in the 9th with this cutter, slider, and cutter. Kevin Kelly had this ridiculous sweeper, and he had up to 24 inches, 2 feet of break on his sweeper. Ryan Helsley had this elevated heat. Mark Leiter Jr., he seems to be featured every day, had this splitter. Mason Englert had this slider and got fired up. Jordan Romano had this 97-mile-an-hour heat. Tyler Rogers had this fastball and rising slider. And the filthiest reliever of the day comes down to really 2 pitchers. We have Justin Lawrence with this absolute filth. Look at these sweepers that broke up to 21 inches, and one of them causing a death by the Ripper. And he also had this nasty 2-seamer. And then we had this dominance by Alex Lange with his 97-mile-an-hour fastball and hammer curveballs getting the sword. You gotta respect the turtleneck. Between Justin Lawrence and Alex Lange, who do you think was the filthiest reliever yesterday? Leave me your thoughts in the comments. One more thing, Liam Hendriks was back in action, working his way back after his battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and got this K in the minor leagues. I also thought his doggy bag full of rosin bags was kind of cute. I think I can speak for all of Ninja Nation and say, welcome back, Liam. This is awesome. And now, my Pitching Ninja moment of zen. Come on, Padres video board operator. You didn't have to do this to poor Clayton Kershaw. That's bullying. What is up, everybody? My picks of the day today are a 3-leg parlay. I'm going to start with Alex Cobb for 6 Ks or more, then take Nick Lodolo for 6 Ks or more, and top it off with Spencer Strider for 9 Ks or more. And I'm sure you all know today is Kentucky Derby Day. I just wanted to let you know that FanDuel is the only sportsbook app that allows you to bet the Kentucky Derby right in the app. You don't have to go anywhere. And right now, all FanDuel customers get a no-sweat bet of up to $20 on the Kentucky Derby. My pick for the Derby, I'm going to go with Derma Sotogake, the horse from Japan, because Team Japan won the WBC, Shohei Ohtani is the best player in baseball, and why can't Derma Sotogake become the first horse bred in Japan to win the Kentucky Derby? He looked great in the UAE Derby and seems to be ready to show his stuff in the Kentucky Derby. What would your picks of the day be?